In 2020, while locked down and working remotely for a financial institution that rhymes with Terrill Binch, I came across something that would change my life. A community of people working more than one full-time job. And this wasn't your usual case of moonlighting where you go from one job during the day and then at night go to a different job. This was working both simultaneously, and some people were taking even a step further, like this kid who had 11 jobs and was making 1.2 million a year. Now I know what you're thinking, that's impossible, there are no jobs anymore, this won't work, or even this is unethical. But I did it successfully for the past 4 years, working 3 jobs, rarely ever working past 5 p.m., and discovering that the whole corporate system was aligned perfectly for this loophole. I'm about to show you how I pulled it off through my S.T.E.A.L.T.H system. For starters, we need to select the right job. Now I combed everything that I could find about overemployment, from the subreddit to blog posts, and what I found was these are the jobs that generally people have been overemployed while doing. As you can see, most of these lean towards tech, but that is not a requirement for the jobs. You want to find a company that fits these 3 criteria, the 3 B's. The first being that is bloated. It's big. The bigger, the better. While you can do this at FAANG companies, I would rule those out because you don't want a company that's very mission focused. You want a company where people's mission is to collect a paycheck and go home, not drive the world forward. This is also why I avoid startups. Now, government work used to be the absolute holy grail. It doesn't get bigger than that, but I think as of recently, those days might be numbered. Thanks to, And at all the companies I've worked for, there was maybe one person my age, and they usually didn't last very long because they're boring. See, these jobs shouldn't be fun, because if they were, people would be flocking to them and applying frequently. You should be competing with people that need a job, not people who want to work this job. And the best part is that those are the easiest people to compete against because the employers can smell that they desperately need it. I found this little hack. If you are interviewing and you can sense that your boss is extremely busy, that is a huge green flag. See, an extremely busy boss will give you a few tasks on their plate to shore up some of their time. And if you can make their life a little bit easier, you can literally do very little more than that and they will still champion you. Soon I'll make a video about how to be hired with ease because there are plenty of jobs out there if you know how to search for them properly. The third B is bureaucracy. Red tapes are not a red flag, they are a giant green flag. The more of them, the better. Target industries that have zero incentive to change. They're stuck in their ways. Think insurance, healthcare, banking. These industries where errors are so costly that they prioritize accuracy over speed in every dynamic. For instance, this financial institution that I worked for was under a bank. The cost of one error is so astronomical that they will build labyrinths of checks and balances to ensure that they don't happen. For a normal person, this is maddening. Just to get anything done, you need approval from everyone and their mother. But for us, this is absolutely perfect. This level of bureaucracy creates the perfect environment where one can blend in, do the bare minimum, and no one cares. And no matter what company you work for, remote is best. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a requirement. When I was working 2 jobs, one of them was a hybrid schedule and one of them was remote, and it is possible. It just adds to the stress level to a point where it might not be worth it. That being said, I was able to negotiate many offers that were initially fully in office to hybrid and then remote by telling them that I work better remotely, but I'm willing to be trained and be in the office when I'm starting off. If you're a good employee, most of the time they will accept a flexible or fully remote arrangement. Now finally, this job can't require too much of your time. Now that doesn't mean that it's easy, it just means that when you get better at the task, you'll be able to do it faster. And at a certain point, you'll be able to do it faster than anyone thought was possible. Think about learning how to type. When you start off, you're using 2 fingers and you're looking at them to press each button. But eventually, you're able to use all of your fingers and not look. What job skills have you mastered that you can now do in your sleep? And this comes from both experience and optimization. That's one of my favorite parts of overemployment. See, I was a kid that always had a side hustle trying to make an extra buck. Started many other businesses with little success. If only I knew that the biggest one would be utilizing the skills that I already had. Back to the job list, these are the ones that I targeted. But the actual job title you have doesn't matter as much as the workload. And the T in stealth is to target your workload. If your current job takes up every single second of your time, you will never be able to get a second job. And if you do, you will burn out extremely quickly. So all it takes is 3 simple steps. First, to hollow out your responsibilities. You were hired to do something specific, and then over time you add more and more and more tasks. We need to dial it back to that beginning core. The key is doing exactly what we were hired for and nothing more, not a single keystroke. If you're not sure what your core responsibilities are, ask. At my first job, I went to my boss with a piece of paper and told her to write out exactly what I was supposed to be doing to drive the most value to the business. She thought it was great because I was showing initiative. But then I took that list, and whenever someone asked me to do something, I would show it to them and the middle finger when I said no. And that's exactly step 2, is saying no often. If people come to you with tasks outside of that key list, tell them no politely. Maybe not with the middle finger, but a little hack there is tell them no and recommend them to who can help them. Now you will still be seen as helpful when you are doing this, even though you actually do nothing. And the beautiful part is, the next time that person will have a problem, they will go straight to the person that you recommended, cutting yourself out of the picture. And my absolute favorite way of saying no is simply saying that you don't have the bandwidth. I don't really know why that works so well, but I've never had anyone push back when I say something like that. And the beautiful thing is, the more you say no, the more people think you are busy, meaning the less people will come to you for more work. It's really terrific. Now, step 3 is to set expectations low. So you'd be surprised at how little people want from you, and you need to find exactly what that edge is. See, whenever someone asks you to do a task, first off, ask them for a deadline. When do they actually need it by? Because most of the time we assume it is needed urgently, can be pushed off much further than expected. And also, if you know in your head that a task will take 2 hours, if you're asked to give an estimate, say it will take a couple days because you have a lot of things on your plate or your bandwidth issues, whatever. You'd be shocked how much extra time and leeway people give you, particularly if they like you. But the secret is, not everyone needs to like you. At every job, there are 3 key people, and that is the E of stealth. Establish key relationships. Now, the first person is your official boss. This is the person that you report to, and they are the ones who are writing your performance reviews. Obviously, it is critical that they like you, but most of the time, they don't really know what's going on in your day-to-day. And honestly, they don't really care as long as nobody's complaining. And even if they are, haven't you noticed that the boss's favorite employee seems to be able to get away with more? And it's pretty easy to get them to like you. What I did was, with every one of my direct bosses, I would set up a bi-weekly one-on-one. And most of the time, we wouldn't even talk about work. It was 15 to 30 minutes, depending how much time they had, and I would come with 2 to 3 talking points. These would be related to interests that they've had or things that they've brought up in the past that I am referencing again. Now, generally, one-on-ones are a huge waste of time and should be avoided like the plague, but with your bosses, they're critical. Let them talk about themselves, laugh easily, and smile even if you're not on camera. People can hear it. The deeper your relationship you can have with them, the more they will champion you when you're not in the room. Now, the second person is your boss. And this is the person that you spend the most time with on the job. This is a person you are side to side with in the trenches, and usually they are the SME. or the subject matter expert. They are usually those fountain of wisdom type people who have been there forever. They know how everything works, and because of that, you're going to need to pester them pretty often. So you need to make sure that you are not an annoyance. And third, the squeaky wheel. Every team has that one person that nobody likes working with. They complain constantly, they create extra work, and generally are a nuisance. And if you can befriend them, people will thank you and be shocked at how well you get along with them. At one of my jobs, I literally did nothing else besides greasing the squeaky wheel. See, he was a superstar developer. I befriended him and told him, instead of him raising his concerns to the team, which he would do frequently through Slack channels, putting people on blast, I had him go through me first. And then I was able to diffuse the situation or change his language in a way that people would actually help him because they thought they were helping me. And generally, when it comes to befriending these three people, it's pretty easy. Ask questions, find common ground, laugh frequently, say their name often, and tell them that they're appreciated. I had a coworker literally cry at the end of a meeting once. She was a squeaky wheel, she was being overworked and felt like nobody was doing anything to help her. So after the meeting, I sent her a message, something like, "Tough meeting, I know you don't hear this enough, but what you do for the company and all of us is appreciated. It doesn't go unnoticed." Something like that. Sometimes all people want is just to be noticed. And particularly the squeaky wheel, if you pay them any attention at all, they'll be stunned because most of the time they're getting shunned. And for everyone else outside of those core 3 to 4 people, keep it largely transactional. You're not here to make friends, you're here to make money. Also, a little hack is to make spreadsheets of people's lives, particularly if you're working 2 or more jobs. Keeping track of the different people and what their hobbies are, what vacations they went on is near impossible. So if you keep a spreadsheet with different people in the lines and then bring them up in the future by asking follow-up questions, people will be shocked that you remembered, and it really shows that you care. It takes a couple minutes, but it is totally worth it. But building relationships is only half of the battle. Once you've secured your position socially, you need to make sure that you can actually do your work and keep up. That leads us to A, amplifying our focus. Now, an average 9 to 5 worker really only works for about 2, maybe 3 hours a day. And I mean pure, undivided attention focused on the task at hand and not doing pseudo work like meetings, email, Slack messaging, things like that. So your advantage will be carving out dedicated time every single day to complete your tasks ahead of time. Scheduling is your best friend. Every morning, I would go through and look at my 3 different calendars and the to-do lists associated with each job, prioritize them, and then find time on my schedule that was free where I could just have head down work for 2, maybe 3 hours. Then when the time would come, I would put my phone away, remove all distractions, and hyper-focus on those specific tasks, managing all of them effectively. You know that feeling when you enter the flow state and because of a deadline, suddenly you can do in 2 hours what you normally do in 2 days? That's what we're trying to harness. So I would usually give myself unrealistic deadlines for tasks that need to be completed. Then, using that little bit of extra deadline pressure and the undivided attention that I scheduled in my tasks, it's a pretty potent solution. So if most people waste 75% of their day, and we can manage our time to only waste 25% of our time, then we can work 3 jobs and still do as much as one normal worker. Though maximizing our productivity is only valuable if we can keep our multiple roles hidden. L, limit your visibility. Remember the first rule of Fight Club? The same thing applies here. The urge to brag will be really strong. Don't. But Wilson, you're sitting here bragging, hypocrite. You're right, but I'm not in the game anymore. I followed my action plan and got out, so now I can speak about it and maybe help others follow suit. But while you're overemployed, deactivate your LinkedIn, try not to post on social media. If you do, make sure it is under a very different name. Honestly, it works much more easily if you are completely dark online. The more anonymous, the better. And within your work circles, don't add a picture to your Slack, your Outlook, or any other community forums. You'll want to be a ghost. And if you can, hardball never going on camera. This is kind of a tough push, but if you can set people's expectations that you won't be on camera, then they will celebrate the times that you are on camera instead of demonizing the times where you aren't. Have your excuses ready for emergencies. I literally had a spreadsheet of which ones I'd used across the different jobs. Need to be pretty quick-witted, but one time slipping up and using an excuse can ruin the entire experience, and people will then become suspicious. People default to truth, but once they've been flipped, it's hard to get them to start believing you again. And there are absolutely gonna be times when you're gonna drop a ball. There are too many conflicting meetings that are important that you have to speak on, so you need your excuses ready. These are some of my favorite ones. My absolute favorite one is that my twin is getting engaged and was gonna propose to his partner. And then the next day I came back and said that she said no, that they're gonna wait a little longer. So then I could use the same excuse again a couple months later when they finally got married. Pretty good. And critically important when it comes to limiting your visibility is within the company itself, you wanna tell your boss that you're going to stay an individual contributor. Even if you've been a manager in the past, just tell them that it wasn't for you. And particularly if we're doing the bare minimum, towing the line perfectly, we shouldn't be getting promotions. For the most part, promotions are traps. Disproportionately add on work to your plate while giving you very little reward. For instance, at my first job, I grinded to get my first promotion, and then my boss dangled the next promotion in front of me. She said it was an unprecedented 20% raise. They never give it to people. All I had to do was pick up a second team. Double the workload, 20% more pay. That was actually one of the reasons that I started to look into having multiple jobs. I realized the math was off. So do the math, it's rarely ever worth it, particularly when you factor in that you could be working 2 jobs or more. So the T in S.T.E.A.L.T.H stands for time management. This probably is pretty obvious, but there are a couple hot tips that I have in this front. I will make a whole separate video about this coming soon, but the basics are the summation of your work is in the systems that you create. And particularly if you do a task over and over again, make it a checklist. Sounds stupid, but it works exceptionally well. Particularly on those boring tasks that the compliance type tasks that you need to do, everyone hates doing, but they're actually pretty easy if you have a checklist. And I don't think this needs to be said, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You finish your work, don't ask for more work. And also make sure that you're not finishing it super ahead of time so that more work would be placed upon you. It seems simple, but it's a core tenet not to be missed. If you have downtime, lead people to believe that you are busy. What they don't know can't hurt them. And at all costs, try to end your day at the time you normally would with one job when you have 2, 3, or more. See, with proper structuring and deadline pressure, adding on extra jobs shouldn't deplete your life energy. Because the goal is really to keep your lifestyle the same while doubling or tripling your income. And you'll notice that the most effective people at work usually have the most demanding commitments outside of work. Parents with young children, people with serious hobbies, or students. See, when you have less time, you waste less time and you are more efficient. And speaking of efficiency, the final H is to harvest your benefits. And this is about making it all worthwhile. And for the love of don't increase your spending when your income increases. I have seen a handful of people get a second or third job only to end up in a worse financial state than when they started. Let me tell you a little story about a French philosopher named Denis Diderot. See, his entire life he lived as a starving artist, bobbing in and out of poverty. But that all changed in 1 year when his daughter decided to get married. Now, he could not afford a dowry. And this was surprising because he was someone that actually had a pretty well-known name. See, he wrote the Encyclopédia, which is one of the most comprehensive encyclopedias ever written. And even though it was well known, it did not pay well. Word of his struggles got out, and eventually Catherine the Great, the heiress of Russia, the Empress of Russia, heard through the grapevine of his troubles and decided to help him out. So she offered to buy his library. He accepted, and suddenly he had more money than he ever had seen before. Now, he did not have grand visions of buying a second house or a Lambo or whatever the equivalent at the time was, a chrome horse. Instead, he set his eyes on one thing, a scarlet robe, something he had seen when he was a child and had always wanted for himself. He bought it, and it was better than he ever imagined. The only issue was when he went home and put it on his chair or in his closet, it looked out of place. Now everything seemed kind of dingy in comparison. So he bought some new clothes, bought a new chair, which then led to buying a new desk, a new bed, a new rug, and eventually overhauling his whole room, his house, until he was out of money. So just be aware of the consequences of lifestyle creep. Even the smallest starting point can compound into something very significant and potentially heed all of your progress. Now, did I go out and buy a nice car? Maybe. But was it the absolute crappiest version of it that I could find? And are cars my favorite thing on the planet? Yes. And will I lose no money on it when I sell it? Probably. So just be aware and make sure that you are prioritizing, saving, and investing first, and then just spend intelligently. And remember, you can't be overemployed forever. You will burn out, you will get caught, and it is not a long-term strategy. So that being said, make sure that you have an exit plan. See, when I started, I told myself I would do it for 4 years, bank and invest the second and third salary, and then when the time came, scale back and start making YouTube videos, like I am now. So think about your exit. Is it financial independence? Is it starting a new business, taking a sabbatical? Make sure that you plan for it and follow your plan when the time comes. For me, 4 years of strategic overemployment allowed me to save more than 2 decades of standard employment. Thus, I would have ample runway to start businesses or do what I want, like this. And if you can implement S.T.E.A.L.T.H correctly, this could be you too. It is absolutely doable and the opportunities are abundant. I would deeply appreciate if you subscribe. I know it's kind of meaningless, but seeing that number go up really makes me feel fantastic. Progress is the key to life, and that is a very clear metric of progress for me. And if that's too much and you don't want to see my ugly mug in your feed, then at least give me a like. Greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.